happen. We have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Hum.
And I'm back. Ann Northrup
Welcome
here.
back, Ann.
Thank you to Blanche Wiesen-Cook and Rob Shooter for sitting in this chair for the last couple of weeks. I appreciate it.
And thank you for watching, because some of you have told us that Gay USA is very hard to watch sometimes. I'm using the Trump line about the Olympics. And we're going to talk about that.
A little obscure, but go ahead.
Okay. This past week, the Republican majority in the Senate confirmed an out gay ambassador from the United States, but is blocking the nomination of an out lesbian to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Both are complicated stories. We'll give you the details, but much more important, Janelle Monae came out this week. We'll show you her picture. I could look at it for days, but mostly we'll just celebrate it.
State legislatures are wrapping up their business. Most of them have, but anti-LGBT bills are still alive in Oklahoma and Kansas. And there were some pro-gay bills, too, we'll tell you about.
And a little bit of surprising good news. In Chicago, queer activist Lulu Martinez, a Mexican-born dreamer, was granted asylum. Amazing these days.
In the United States of America.
Shocking.
In Texas, also a shock, the killer of a gay man got a light sentence by using the gay panic defense.
Not so shocking. In Wisconsin, high school students, in a very routine way, chose a transgender classmate as prom queen.
Sonny Wolf, the founder.
Sonny.
Sonny? S-O-N-I, Sonny Wolf, one of the founders of Dykes on Bikes, has died at the age of 69.
This Friday at 7 o'clock p.m. in New York City at the LGBT Center, I will be co-facilitating a town hall meeting about the Pride Parade this year. There are activists who've organized to present a list of demands. They're very angry about some of the ways Pride is going to be run, and so there's going to be a big public town hall meeting. We'll give you more detail on that.
Who is your co-facilitator?
A young woman I have not met, and therefore I can't tell you her name.
Okay, it's a secret. Enjoy. New HIV infections are continuing to drop nationally in the United States, but most are coming from the South now, even though they don't have most of the people.
Andy's very excited because the Tony nominations are out, and I'm excited because Angels in America got more nominations, 11, than any play has ever gotten.
Yeah, it's because it's got some musical aspects, even though it's not a musical. I'm going to review a bunch of Broadway productions: St. Joan, Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and Tom Stoppard's travesties, The Revival. But we do start with the Trump administration. So this week they did confirm Mike Pompeo, the anti-gay guy who's going to run our State Department now.
But he looks like such a nice guy now.
He's always like this. Like this.
He's going to bring
I love everybody. I respect everybody.
American swagger back to the world.
Whoa.
When I heard that, I thought, really? Is that what we want?
Well, he was confirmed 57-42, and so anti-gay bigotry is no barrier to high office in this country. I really hated it when Chuck Todd was discussing this and said, well, you know, the Democrats seem a little squeamish about the fact that he's against same-sex marriage. No! He called us a perversion, and he wouldn't take it back.
Well, the real question, which none of these politicians or Chuck Todd have asked, is the State Department has been a beacon of light for LGBT people harassed and abused around the world. What is your policy going to be? What are your actions going to be?
And these activists from around the world are quite alarmed that this is our new Secretary of State.
Well, until he proves himself to the contrary, he has been an active worker against our rights and protections for many years.
And And then stateside, Trump nominated Richard Grinnell to be our ambassador to Germany. And on the eve of Angela Merkel's visit, there he is, Richard Grinnell there on the left with a friend of his. He was confirmed 56-42. He's an out gay man. But he's also a misogynist, a major misogynist, has been making anti-sexist tweets for years. So the Republicans are willing to vote for a gay guy if he's anti-woman. I hardly consider this progress.
Well, I don't know that his misogyny was the selling point for the Republicans, but he's a commentator on Fox. He's clearly a more right-wing guy. He was a press secretary for Mitt Romney's presidential campaign for about 2 weeks until they discovered he was gay, and then he got kicked off the campaign.
Doesn't seem to bother the Republican senators. I mean, it was a 56-42 vote, so not all the Democrats voted against him.
The really discouraging thing is that the log cabin Republicans, the LGBT Republican group, got up on their hind legs and said, how dare the Democrats vote against this guy? You don't like gay people when they're Republicans.
It's not like we're voting against him because he's gay.
And then they made some stupid statement about, like the first gay ambassador.
Oh, my God.
Obama had 7. Bush
had them.
Bush had 1. Clinton had 1. Ridiculous. So for them to get angry at Democrats voting against Rick Grinnell, who is a misogynist, who is right-wing, who is a Fox commentator,
the Log Cabin
is
Republicans,
ridiculous.
with all due respect to those of you who are watching from the Log Cabin Club, is a man bites dog story. It's not a very large group. It gets a lot of press because they're gay Republicans. But
by the way, when the White House put out a press release about the confirmation of Rick Grinnell, they did not mention that he's gay. So I guess they're not crowing about having confirmed a gay ambassador.
And did the Log Cabin Club say anything about the confirmation of Mike Pompeo, an anti-gay, anti-LGBT bigot?
Not that it has crossed my desk.
Oh, well, that would be nice. So you would have more credibility, perhaps, if you mentioned these things.
But I was happy to see that as controversy raged over, as you referenced, Trump's welcoming the Olympic competitors to the White House, Paralympians who were insulted by him and the rest, that a record number of Olympians did not go, including Adam Rippon, Gus Kenworthy, Lindsey Vonn, and a lot of others.
Adam had to get ready for Dancing with the Stars, where he's going to be where he's dancing
More
with a woman
on that
now.
Later.
But and he's also said he was, after he saw what happened at the White House ceremony, I wasn't sorry I didn't go. I didn't miss anything.
Gus Kenworthy is also getting ready for his appearance at the Los Angeles Dodgers' 6th annual Pride event on June 8th. Get your tickets now if you want to see him there.
When the right wing read that these Olympians were not going to go to the White House, they said, "We want no more government funding for the Olympics." So Gus Kenworthy wrote, he has more Twitter followers than the rest of you all, we don't get any, so we're not going to, you can't take it away. We don't get any government funding.
Now, in terms of more White House appointments, while confirming Mike Pompeo and Rick Grinnell, there is controversy over the White House's renomination of Heidi Feldblum to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, because she is, of course, a very well-known lefty lesbian.
Yes.
Who's been fantastic on the EEOC.
And I don't know if I completely understand the rules.
I do.
Well, but you have to have at least, the majority party gets, the White House gets a majority on the EEOC, but they have to be 2 Democrats as well as the 3 Republicans.
Well, here's the, I don't know about majority, but you have to have some of each, certainly. And the Republican scheme.
No, it's not some. It has to be like 3-2.
Yes, 3-2, but not necessarily the majority, the White House having the majority of the people. That's the way it works out, because that's what they want. But in order to get 2 new Republicans confirmed to the EEOC, they renominated Heidi Feldblum to try to do a deal with the Democrats.
Well, Mike Lee from Utah is saying...
he didn't get the message.
Well, he's also saying we don't have to do this as a package. We can do them all separately.
He is saying, the heck with this deal. I don't want Heil Feldblum under any circumstances, but there are Republicans who are mad at him, Senator Mike Lee, Republican of Utah, because he's holding up the deal.
Well, he's the one who's trying to not protect Robert Mueller in the Senate. He's leading the charge on that as well.
I think Rod Rosenstein has been just fantastic this week. Who knew?
Well, he is.
He's been so quiet.
So the controversy over the trans military ban keeps going on. Now they got 6 former surgeons general to speak out against it, joining Joycelyn Elders and David Satcher. 49 senators said this is just like don't ask, don't tell all over again. But Lisa Murkowski is the only Republican who signed on to this,
Yes,
and Joe Manchin did not sign on to it, the Democrat from West Virginia who was up for re-election this year.
Yeah. The Department of Health and Human Services wants to cut transgender care and non-discrimination rules from the Affordable Care Act, and some are pointing out that this may be illegal because they were passed in the bill. So the ACLU is prepared to sue if, in fact, they follow through on that promise.
There are now going to be no more oral arguments before the United States Supreme Court for this term unless there's an emergency. So the decisions are going to start coming fast and furious between now and the end of June. They don't have to rule on everything. We're, of course, most concerned about the Masterpiece Cake Shop decision, partisan redistricting in Wisconsin and Maryland, and labor rights, among other things.
I'm trying to figure out whether to be concerned about this Saturday's Freedom March in Washington. It's run by all the right-wing organizations, and it's supposed to be freedom from homosexuality, transgenderism, or transsexuality. They're supposedly gathering in numbers in D.C., although often they talk about these things and no one shows up.
It's out of order, but we have an image from that, and it's
oh yes,
yes. If we can possibly pull that up, it is of, if I can find my notes now. Yes, it's Luis Javier Ruiz. He was a survivor of the Pulse massacre who says that he has overcome his struggles with perversion, drinking, and promiscuity that led to him getting HIV, and God has taken him away from that. There he is. He's going to be one of the participants in this, and it's really horrifying that this is...
And you have a theory about the...
the whole, if you look at the... pull the image back up again. The image that they're using for the Freedom March is the equality sign in the corner there, the Freedom March, the way HRC, and these are the HRC colors, sort of a greenish yellow and blue. So they're picking up on that, and they're trying to trick you to come. They think you're going to have a gay old time, and you are going to meet a lot of homosexual people, but they're out of homosexuality now, they say.
And I'd just like to compliment Michelle Wolf, who I thought did a great job at the White House Correspondents' Dinner last weekend. As I watched the routine live, I had mixed feelings about it. I sort of thought, oh, is that a little too edgy, whatever. But then I read the whole transcript the next day. The whole thing is fantastic.
The whole thing should be called off.
Well, the dinner, perhaps, but my actual favorite line, and I don't think she, Sarah Sanders gets up every day at the White House and lies and lies and lies and attacks journalists and is very personal and just sneers at people, and then people feel sympathy for her because a comedian makes a few cracks. Ridiculous. But my actual favorite Michelle Wolf line was, that Trump, he's not always wrong. He wants to give guns to teachers. I think this is a great idea because when you give them guns, then they can sell them and buy the supplies they need for their classrooms. That was perfect.
I could put this under AIDS news, but it's Trump news. PEPFAR money is now going to a South African group. PEPFAR money is federal money for AIDS. That is a South African group affiliated with Focus on the Family. This is what's
And
happening
it's
to
gonna-
federal money these days.
And the money is going to fund abstinence-only education, which is really horrifying.
And it seems to be more apparent now that Amazon, as it's trying to find a new headquarters for its stores, for its center, they're limiting themselves to states that actually have laws in place protecting LGBTQ people. I hope they stick to that,
Yeah.
but that's going to knock out.
That doesn't surprise me.
But they have been flirting with Atlanta and other places.
Well,
Atlanta has a law.
flirting, sure, but
accepting major proposals from these cities.
Yeah.
And
then you think about it,
if
and
they're
you,
out of the running,
you decide what to do.
And it was nice to see Paul Ryan fire the chaplain of the United States Senate, because we shouldn't be having. He was doing prayers, and we should separate church and state.
I agree, but I don't live under any illusion that they're not going to appoint another one.
But of course, the guy's being fired for praying. The guy's being fired.
Pat Robertson will probably end up as the chaplain.
The guy, well, I don't think he has the juice, but the guy's being fired for praying for the poor. I mean,
yes.
And of course, the right wing is always emphasizing religious freedom, the freedom to express their religious
Surely
views.
you're not calling them hypocrites.
That's our job on this show. Yeah. Well, why not? We do have to point
It's
it
not
out.
rocket science, but someone has to say it.
Mike Pence was out there raising money for GOP candidates in Arizona and praised convicted criminal Joe Arpaio, who was running for a U.S. Senate seat out there. He is a white supremacist, if you didn't know.
They're covering all their bases.
All right.
If he becomes nominated, they're going to want to be on his good
Let's
side.
talk about Janelle.
Oh, okay. Janelle Monae, always a popular favorite. You may know her, if you don't know her music, you would know her from the movies Moonlight or Hidden Figures, in both of which she was just fabulous and, of course, gorgeous, as you can see there.
She played Mary Jackson in Hidden Figures. She was the character who had to fight to finish her education in schools that were segregated.
She's a wonderful actress, which no one really anticipated, but she is, and I hope she goes on to make many more movies. But she is primarily a singer and has a new album out called Dirty Computer.
No, it's like her first album in 5 years.
It could be. But she gave an interview to Rolling Stone, and she has long been sort of quietly linked with the actress Tessa Thompson. She's also had relationships with men, and so she was asked about this by Rolling Stone, and she said, well, I'm bisexual. In fact, I'm pansexual the more I read about it. There she is with Tessa.
She gave this wonderful quote. She says, I want young girls, young boys, non-binary, gay, straight, queer people who are having a hard time dealing with their sexuality, dealing with feeling ostracized or bullied for just being their unique selves to know that I see you.
And be proud.
Yes.
She dedicated the album to ostracized, bullied LGBTQ kids.
Well, this album, Dirty Computer, the tour kicks off on June 11th in Seattle, and it ends up in Atlanta August 5th. So do some Googling if you want to see if she's coming to your city.
She actually was on The Voice this week and scandalized the audience by being a little racy. But she is something, and what a wonderful role model, and what a huge star to come out at this point.
Yes.
Just fantastic. Thank you, Janelle.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we go to the states?
Sure.
Well, Oklahoma advanced a bill to allow religious-based discrimination against LGBT people and non-Christians and single people in adoption and foster care. They passed it 60-26, and at present it only applies to private agencies that do not receive government funding, but the proponents want to include those as well. The Catholic Conference of Oklahoma says that they'd be forced to close if they had to place kids with households that don't share their values.
Look, here's their choice. They could close, or they could actually serve everybody. Wouldn't that be a lovely idea? This whole thing started in Massachusetts years ago when Catholic charities stopped doing adoption services because they didn't want to serve ugly, dirty, same-sex couples.
And there's a big fight about this in Kansas as well, same kind of a bill, and the big tech companies are fighting it, and they're trying to send the message that we can't do business in a state that is this openly discriminatory.
Well, the right wing doesn't care, and it's a matter of numbers at this point. In New Jersey, in Hoboken, they are going to mandate that single-stall bathrooms run by the city will all be gender neutral.
We have that law in New York City, but they're not implementing it everywhere. They have done it here at MNN.
Yeah, finally. In Hawaii, they have become the 12th state to bar conversion therapy for minors. And
in Mansfield, Texas, that teacher who was suspended for fighting for gay rights in Texas at the Charlotte Anderson Elementary School, star teacher. Well, she's still on suspension, and they're paying her, but they've renewed her contract, even though they haven't brought her back. And she and her allies are pushing for a non-discrimination policy in the school that covers LGBT.
Here's my actual favorite story after Janelle Monae. In Massachusetts, the state Republican Party held a convention to renominate Charlie Baker for governor. The governor of Massachusetts is a Republican, a moderate Republican, yes. Charlie Baker.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Well, Charlie Baker did not get the required amount of votes. He was just under 70% at the convention to be nominated.
Without having to petition?
Without having to go through a primary. Who is it who kept him from that number and will be in a primary with him? Scott Lively.
Wow.
Scott Lively, running for governor of Massachusetts. This is the man who has traveled Africa, making them create anti-LGBT laws, is being sued in Springfield, Mass. by Ugandans who are gay activists who are mad at him for bringing all the anti-gay stuff to Africa, is a rabid homophobe.
We are a very liberal country, and we let convicted criminals run for office. Joe Arpaio.
Yes. Scott Lively is the author of the pink swastika that said all the Nazis were gay and created the Holocaust. And
that was Norman Podhoritz's theory of World War II.
Well, look, I don't know who was gay and who wasn't, but I don't think it was part of the gay agenda.
Ernst Röhm was gay. And Hitler had him killed on the Night of the Long Knives.
Scott Lively is forcing Governor Charlie Baker of Massachusetts into a primary.
All right, where are we in our...
Fascinating.
Our list here. Well, in politics, in Tampa, the election isn't until next year, but one of the new candidates is an open lesbian who was the police chief, Jane Castor, and so she's running now, and that's
for mayor of Tampa.
For mayor of Tampa,
2019. But she has a little. Wait a minute. She's a little controversial because she was accused of unequally enforcing laws. They called it biking while black, that black citizens were more likely to be ticketed for inappropriately riding bikes.
But it was no bar to making her the Grand Marshal of the Pride Parade. Actually, was it this year?
Last year and this year.
Last year.
Whatever.
But when we take back Pride, maybe things will be different.
In San Francisco, the city supervisors have passed a resolution to declare the leather and LGBTQ cultural district. This is a device they've used several times before for other communities to honor the past of the district and to try to preserve some of its characteristics so it doesn't over-gentrify the indigenous population out of existence.
Yeah, this is the South of Market neighborhood. I'm curious about what the actual benefit is. They
get city funding to preserve affordable housing and characteristics of the neighborhood.
Access to public money. Yeah. It's a home to the gay and the kink bars. And they still have the Folsom Street Fair there all the time. Yeah. Every year.
Yeah.
But we don't have anything, well, we have some preservation in New York, but not enough.
All right, so what do you think about Joy Reid's MSNBC apology for...
I watched it. I watched Joy apologize. I certainly felt it was heartfelt. But look, the issue is she's got to figure out whether she actually wrote these things or not. She's saying, I can't imagine that I wrote them. They're so alien to me. I mean, she admits to some mild homophobic things that she wrote in the past that we weren't too concerned about Charlie Crist. She acknowledged that. And so we don't know. The thing is, everything we've seen of Joy in recent years has been positive, and she's
completely.
a leader of
aggressively.
a leader of the resistance.
Yeah.
I just hope that if you did something like this in the past, we've all done things we're not proud of, admit it.
I understand also, people will quote to me things I've said, and I say, really? I have absolutely no memory of saying that. No. I don't deny I said it, but it just, it's not in my brain. So I don't know whether she wrote these things. I'm a little disturbed that some people are quite positive that she wrote these, and others are quite...
It's there in black and white, right on the internets.
Exactly. So, I certainly support her attempts to work through this and her support of our community
look,
now.
I know plenty of people who have deeply homophobic pasts who turned around on the issue over time.
Yep.
These are people who did bad stuff in the 60s and 70s, and the way they treated gay people or beat people up or whatever, and they became tremendous allies.
Yes.
I mean, that's what we want.
All right, Bridgeport, Connecticut, a well-known, well-liked local trans woman, 49 years old, shot. She is not dead. She's recovering, and they may have arrested the perpetrator, but just more anti-trans violence.
And they did arrest the perpetrators in Miami Beach, who beat up a gay couple right after the Pride celebration there. And they honored, and we have a picture of this, Helmut Estrada, who was also part of the dust-up there, who stood up for the gay couple while they were being attacked.
Those are the attackers.
They're facing
Did we put up the picture of there's Helmut being honored
with the gay couple, and there were three against the perpetrators, the alleged perpetrators. There are three felony counts of aggravated battery. The state is going to decide on May 10th at the arraignment whether to add hate crimes charges. All of those guys were 20 to 21. A danger zone.
Less charming. In Texas, there's a case of an older guy who was accused of killing a younger gay man.
Well, he did kill him.
He did kill him.
The
guy on the right is the murderer.
James Miller, 69 years old.
So the older guy put forth a gay panic defense. He says the young guy came on to him.
David Spencer, 32.
First, that's a stretch.
Well, we don't want to make any stereotypical assumptions, but he says not only that the guy came on to him, but got very aggressive, holding a glass with something that he was going to attack me if I didn't be with him or something. So
he killed him by stabbing him in the back several times.
He was sentenced to 10 years probation and 6 months in jail, 100 hours of community service, and he has to pay $11,000 to Richard Spencer's family. So you look at it all. I mean, we're not sitting there in the jury, but
we're not. But we're skeptical, and we think it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
In Georgia, at Spelman College, one of the historically black women's colleges, anti-LGBT notes, anonymous notes, have started popping up in students' rooms. Probably tied to the fact that the college has just announced that they will accept trans women students. So these angry anti-trans, anti-LGBT notes are popping up. So the school is now starting to investigate, but no answers yet on a perpetrator.
In Newport Beach, California, 3 gay men were at the Balboa Inn, and they say they were called anti-gay slurs by the bartender, I think it was, denied service, and forcefully removed. They filed a civil suit against a restaurant there. The bartender told them their ideas were fake. Security guard roughed them up, and they had to call an ambulance for them.
And patrons were supporting them and taking video of this, so it seems pretty ugly.
Homophobic.
Yeah. All right,
The Missouri Supreme Court is heard cases on whether sexual orientation and gender identity discrimination is allowable based on the state prohibition against sex discrimination.
No result there yet.
No result there yet.
In Wisconsin, a lovely story from, I can't read my own hair. Oh, Mequon, Wisconsin. Nico Nelson is a high school student there at Homestead High School, and she has just been elected prom queen, and we have a lovely local report on that.
For Nico Nelson, it's all about the clothes.
And then I was going to wear these shoes because it's like a pop of color.
The high school junior plans a career in fashion. This month she learned her personal style would take center stage at Homestead High School's prom.
I was talking to a person that's on prom committee, and they said that you won prom queen. And I was just like, are you being serious?
It's a dream for a girl who struggled for acceptance ever since she was a little boy.
I didn't realize that I wanted to be a girl, but I just noticed that I mostly had girlfriends, and I participated in most of the girl activities.
Her parents say Nico always preferred girl things. Then in junior high, they tackled the issue head on.
This is before Caitlyn Jenner, this is before everything was in the news, and Nico kind of educated us about it. As much as Nico is a transgender girl, she's our daughter.
Her parents and her best friend India made the journey with her.
I was a boy when I met her, and then when I started transitioning, she didn't think of me differently.
People love Nico, love her. And I'm glad people can see her as the way I see her, as just a normal friend, normal person.
Nico wore her first dress to her 8th grade graduation.
Nico Nelson!
Now she's queen of the prom. She says most everyone has been supportive, though there are a few guys who won't let the issue go.
India posted a picture on Snapchat saying vote her for prom queen. They texted her, do you mean king?
Do you think of yourself as a trailblazer?
I just like to think of myself as a normal person, but at the same time I do realize that I do have a different quirk to me. I didn't win prom queen for being a transgender girl. I won prom queen for being Nico Nelson.
What we found most remarkable about Nico's story is how unremarkable a choice she was. For all the political controversy about transgender, the kids at Homestead looked past the issue to pick the person they wanted to be the queen of their prom.
It looks like she has a strong support system.
And I guess we can just close up shop. Everything is taken.
Not in Wisconsin, because a trans man and a trans woman are suing the state because Medicaid will not cover their needed surgery.
Yes, indeed. But in Wichita, Kansas, a trans teacher, Stephanie Byers at North High School, came out in 2014 and has just been named the National Educator of the Year by GLSEN.
Nice. We mourn the death in San Francisco of Sunny Wolf, age 69. She was a founding member of Dykes on Bikes, and with them for more than 40 years. She died of natural causes.
And was involved in the lawsuit to allow the Dykes on Bikes name to be registered with the federal government. The patent office was resisting it. And the
Bush administration.
National Center for Lesbian Rights won that case with Sunny's support.
Landmark case.
And some polling that came out from the American Values Atlas of the Public Religion Research Institute now says that support for same-sex marriage is up to 61%, and only 30% are opposed. The holdouts, of course, are conservative Republicans, only 36%, but 36% of them support it. And overall, 60% of Americans oppose denial of service to gay people, LGBT people, I should say, at public accommodations.
And yet, Mike Pompeo is Secretary of State.
Yep.
In Chicago, Illinois, congratulations to Lulu Martinez, 28 years old. She's been here in the United States since she was 3. There she is in that camel coat. She has won asylum from being returned to Mexico. She won asylum as a queer activist and an immigration activist. And the judge said that, yes, Mexico has legalized same-sex marriage. Yes,
the Department of Homeland Security was arguing all this. That hey, they got same-sex marriage there in Mexico City a long time ago, and
things are great in Mexico.
There's a vibrant gay community there.
Yeah, and the judge said no. In fact, it can still be very dangerous, and she's been here since she was 3. She's a dreamer, and she is staying here.
She graduated last year from the University of Illinois Chicago in Gender and Women's Studies.
In Montana, the Billings Gazette wrote a great editorial condemning the hypocrisy of the Catholic Church there, Catholic leaders. They got upset because a gay male couple are leading a fundraising drive for Catholic schools there in Montana. Now, that's a whole other question, but the Catholic...
When my Catholic school calls, I say, oh, do you approve of homosexuality now?
No,
I say, well,
bye.
I don't have any money.
Well, at any rate, that's one controversy. But at the same time, these Catholic leaders are asking their parishioners to help them raise $20 million to pay a settlement to abuse victims. So the Billings Gazette is quite upset by their hypocrisy. And I asked, this was sent to me by a friend in Montana, and I asked her about Tester because Trump is going after Tester.
He's the senator who exposed... Democratic senator who exposed this Johnny, whatever his name was.
Ronnie Jackson.
Ronnie Jackson,
yeah,
who was
the
up
surgeon.
for VA director.
Yes, and I asked about his chances for re-election because it's regarded as a little dicey. There are 4 Republicans running in the primary against him, and the one who has the best chance, who's the leading candidate,
Was a Nazi?
is named Fag. F-A-G-G.
Wow.
Well, that
You're very brave, Mr. Fag, I must say.
Yep.
Having a name like that.
He's the leading contender among the Republicans.
We remember a guy named Gay, who had the last name of Gay, who went on a rampage against gay people because he'd been so abused all his life.
And I just visited an old high school friend of mine whose first name is Gay, and she thanked me for naming the show after her. No problem, I said.
Hey, speaking of what's going on in America, some interesting political notes. In Delaware, Senator Tom Carper is running for re-election, a Democrat. His primary is from Kerry Harris, an out veteran and community activist, a bit to the left of him. And one of the Republicans running is an out gay guy named Gene Truano, a former PayPal exec. And then in Tennessee, the former Democratic governor Phil Bredesen is leading the Republican Martha Blackburn for the Corker seat.
She's a right-wing nut.
Yeah.
All right, this Friday, if you're seeing this Thursday night in New York City, tomorrow, or a day or two from now, depending on when you're seeing it.
It's Friday whenever you're seeing it.
Friday the 4th, 7 p.m. at the LGBT Center, 208 West 13th Street. Reclaim Pride town hall meeting. I am co-facilitating this.
We have been trying to do this for about 40 years.
Well, there's a big controversy.
To make Pride what it was, which is basically
more political
march for our rights,
as
commemorating the Stonewall Rebellion.
As opposed to the corporate event it has become, because the Pride Parade is run by an organization called Heritage of Pride. Now, it is a huge undertaking. There is no question about that. But there is great
it's going to be a little shorter now if you've seen the route.
Yes,
it's a little J route.
Changed the route and shortened it. That's one of the complaints. But here are some of the other complaints. Last year, after Trump was elected, 6 months after he took office, the Pride Parade included, over the objections of Heritage of Pride, a big contingent of people of the resistance with a We Resist banner and a lot of anger about what was going on in the country. Yeah. That contingent was in the parade only because Corey Johnson, now the city council speaker, gave us his place or allowed us to join him.
Can he give us his place again?
Well, I don't know, but Heritage of Pride has vetoed participation of a resistance contingent this year, which I think is unbelievably horrible. How could you not want a resistance contingent in the
Corey
parade?
Johnson is our council member, but frankly, I don't think politicians should be anywhere near the front of the parade. They should be in the back supporting us.
Wherever-
But they tend to take the front of the parade.
Well, of course, because this is also, look, Heritage of Pride is interested in pleasing the politicians,
We didn't
pleasing
even
the
used to let
corporations.
politicians speak at the rally.
Heritage of Pride is limiting contingents to no more than 200 people, saying that everyone has to wear wristbands.
Oh, God. I can't wear a wristband. It gives me a rash. I can't.
And,
I don't see any watches.
and the protesters now, called the Reclaim Pride Coalition, want to bust all that up and get the barricades removed. The barricades are very depressing to march between these, metal barricades.
Every parade does that.
And there are objections to cops marching in uniform. Now, this has gone back and forth. There were years when we wanted cops to be able to march in
We
uniform.
fought for their right to march in uniform.
Exactly. But now...
And to have the police marching band in the parade.
Exactly. But now the tide has turned, and now there are some who object to having uniformed cops in the parade, given objections to the police these days. So all of these are issues that are going to be discussed, and how to negotiate with or work with or against Heritage of Pride. Heritage of Pride is supposed to be represented at this town hall on Friday night. We'll see whether they come, but 7 o'clock at the community center, 208 West 13th Street, Friday night.
I will try.
Everyone is welcome.
I will try to be there too.
Okay.
I will listen, because these are complicated issues.
And I will try to facilitate in a neutral but productive manner.
Thank you. You were a very good facilitator.
Well, sometimes.
All right.
International news?
Well, in Kenya, there's a very prominent filmmaker there who was much beloved by the government until he made a film called Rafiki, because the government says it legitimizes lesbianism, and they have
It's a
banned
woman
it.
director.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The director is Waniori Kahiu. Can you?
It's a woman. That's all I can tell you.
Sorry. Anyway, the board had the script of the movie and approved it, but and then the Kenyan president Uhuru Kenyatta was on with Christine Amanpour and was asked about gay rights in general, and he said they were of no importance to the people of Kenya. Well, there's a picture from Rafiki, which is going to Cannes.
It's going to Cannes in the sort of sidebar independent film,
Which is called
Un Certain Regard.
Oui.
And it's still going to show at Cannes, but Kenya has banned the showing of the film in Kenya.
All right. In Hong Kong, I don't completely understand this, but the pro-Beijing lawmakers there are criticizing the appointment of two foreign judges, Brenda Hale and Beverly McLaughlin, to the Court of Final Appeal there. I don't know why they have foreign judges in their own Court of Appeal. It's the way it works, because they're pro-marriage equality. They are from Britain and Canada. They're the first women to be non-permanent judges there on their court.
In Japan, a 69-year-old man is suing because his partner of 45 years died, his male partner, and the late partner's sister took all the business assets, wouldn't let the surviving partner help arrange the funeral, and wouldn't let him attend the funeral as a partner, but only as a friend.
That's not very nice.
Not nice at all. So the guy is suing the sister and trying to establish partnership rights.
In Australia, this was big news, but this is the number 3 guy in the Vatican, Cardinal George Pell. He's going to now stand trial on multiple charges of sexual abuse for what they call historic sexual offenses, both covering up as a bishop and things that he did himself. But they're very discreet in Australia. They don't tell you what the actual charges are, what he actually did. And he denies this, but he also denies rights to gay people.
In Montenegro, the government is proposing a partnership law for same-sex couples. The right wing says it's too much. The gay people say it's too little.
71% of Montenegrins consider homosexuality
Thailand,
an illness.
Thailand is also working on a limited partnership law that is going to cover asset management as a first step to thinking about legalizing
And the local
partnerships.
LGBT people say it's not enough, but it is a start. In Canada, they're working on expanding the deal to compensate gay people who were purged from the military and other government services. They're going to extend it back 7 more years to 1955, maybe even before. They're looking at about $110 million to divvy up. Individuals will get between $5,000 and they're talking about some $175,000 settlements in some cases.
The new, more conservative government of Chile has publicly announced that it is agreeing to fulfill the promises that have been made for legalizing same-sex marriage, adoption, non-discrimination laws, gender identity entitlements in education, work, healthcare, and repealing homophobic laws.
And this was all negotiated with the local LGBT group there, Moville. And they are
in light of the decision by the Inter-American Court on Human Rights.
But this LGBT group is also filing a criminal complaint over a neo-Nazi campaign against trans actress Daniela Vega, who was in A Fantastic Woman, the Oscar-winning foreign film this year.
All right. In India, the Supreme Court is demanding that the government weigh in on the case around sodomy law repeal.
They are telling the government to explain themselves if you want to keep this law.
Well, I kind of think, shouldn't they just decide whether or not the law is constitutional? Why let the government have that much say?
Well, I mean, when our law was argued, the government of the United States showed up, can show up and either defend it or attack it.
If the Indian government doesn't want to show up, that's up to them. Drag queens, however, will be showing up in massive numbers in London on July 13th to greet our president on his state visit to Britain.
Right.
Big drag queen
Thank God I'm
demo.
getting there. Well, I'm getting there a couple of days later.
Because you want to avoid Trump. Not
of
the
course.
drag queens.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I get enough. I've been spending all my time protesting him here. In Northern Ireland, that case of Asher's Bakery, they were fined £500 for refusing to write "Support Gay Marriage" on a cake, with Bert and Ernie as characters on it as well. So now 5 Supreme Court justices are going to hear their appeal in Belfast. Now, our friend Peter Tatchell, and I agree with him, says this is a little different than just selling a wedding cake. This is writing a message, and we don't. And under our First Amendment, you would not be compelled to write any particular message on a cake.
Because we also don't want to be in the position of being forced to write, say, Nazi symbols on a cake, or anti-LGBT messages on a cake, or racist messages on a cake.
How this plays out in the United States will be settled in the Masterpiece Cake Shop, or not. They may not settle it. They may issue a squishy decision. What do you think about the new
track and field rules?
Yes.
I can read his mind. I think they're bad. A new rules issued by the International Track and Field Group is going to police women's testosterone levels.
And the question that's being raised is, what about regulating male testosterone levels, which obviously provides various degrees of
well, that's where it seems dicey, because what they're saying is it is not fair for women to compete against, say, intersex people who identify as women but may have raised testosterone levels. But there are certainly men with all various degrees of hormonal situations or abilities or training or whatever. I mean, no one goes into competitions at a completely
Where's
equal...
the religious right saying this is what God gave them?
Well, too many evidently high testosterone women are winning competitions.
It turns out to be an advantage.
Yeah, maybe the other women should
what about,
boost their testosterone.
Well, somebody said, well, we're going to start, lengthening and shortening legs on people.
Yeah. Basketball players, nobody over 5'8".
Right. We only want teams with people who are 5'8".
Yeah.
And we'll have different leagues for different heights.
It seems very obnoxious.
Are we done now?
Well, El Salvador's Ministry of Justice is putting forth a new LGBTI policy. Probably good, but they're not releasing any specifics.
Fairly conservative country.
And Russia, as we'll segue into AIDS news with this, Russia is blocking a health and HIV info site on the web.
It's called Guys Plus. Well, they call it Party Plus, but it promotes LGBTQ health.
And therefore violates their law that says you cannot promote alternate sexual orientations.
Just a month and a half ago, they blocked the gay.ru site.
Yeah.
That as well. Not a nice place.
The New York Times published half a dozen essays that were sort of a mea culpa on their AIDS coverage, but it was a little lukewarm.
I might accept their apology if they'll give us some compensation for the worldwide AIDS pandemic that you refused to cover.
And it's not like it was on the front page or anything.
All right.
Just a little online supplement.
In the United States, HIV infections are down nationally 18% from 2008 to 2014. That's good. But more than half of the new cases are in southern states, and that's where only 38% of the population resides. Yeah. The biggest decline nationally, 56%, was among IV drug users, but they're expecting that to go up due to the opioid epidemic. By the way, and I didn't put this up on the screen, I apologize, and I'll put it in the email. To find a testing site near you, go to gettested.cdc.gov. Gettested.cdc.gov.
There it is.
Oh, it is. We do have it up there.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
You know how Trump talks about renegotiating trade deals all the time?
Yeah.
What he doesn't talk about is that the United States is now threatening countries, and this is an old issue. We used to yell at Al Gore about this, and Clinton, and every administration since. Trump is threatening countries that issue compulsory licenses under World Health Organization rules for cheaper, life-saving generic drugs. If you are a country that is defined as impoverished, you are allowed to mandate that pharmaceutical companies make cheaper versions of their drugs available. But the United States has always objected to this because they want to prop up the prices for the pharmaceutical companies here, and Trump is continuing that tradition.
Okay.
And Americans for Tax Fairness put out a report that says big pharmaceutical companies are saving billions under the new tax reform law. But they're not dropping any drug prices. They are, buying back stock. Money's going to shareholders.
Shocking.
They're not even, except for a couple, giving any bonuses to workers. They're just reaping all that money. It's terrible.
But we let it happen.
And the Centers for Disease Control has published a national directory of PrEP providers. So if you go to the Centers for Disease Control website, you can find a pre-exposure prophylaxis provider available to you.
In entertainment news, another coming out to tell you about, a guy named Todd Harrity, pro squash player. He says, hey, I'm not famous, but if I can be a source of inspiration to any others in a similar situation, I am pleased. We want to integrate all these sports.
A viewer alerted us to the appearance of Dr. Phil on The View last week. He comes on, the women have all been arguing about something. He says, well, listening to you guys today, I feel like a pansy.
And where were our supposedly pro-LGBT panelists?
Well, there was shocked silence. I'll give them that. They didn't support him.
Have we ever been shocked silent on this show?
It's not our job to be shocked silent. But the panelists were, and so was the audience. The audience just were stunned, and then they moved on.
Okay.
Billions has been renewed for a fourth season. Asia Kate Dillon, the non-binary character, is playing a very prominent role, and is now in the midst of an affair with a man who's a venture capitalist from Silicon Valley.
Tales of the City is going to come back as a new Netflix series produced by Armistead Maupin.
In part.
And it's going to have Laura Linney and Olympia Dukakis.
Will there be protests about Olympia Dukakis in this day and age playing a trans character?
Well, Ellen Page is going to join the cast as well.
10 episodes, 2019 on Netflix.
All right.
American Idol update. Journey, the lesbian whose wife has now deployed to a dangerous place as an Army member, has made it to the final 7. Ada Vox, the drag queen character, who was surprised by her fiancé on last week's show, cut. A little too outre for the teen audience.
The Tony nominations are out, and in terms of significant gay content, LGBT content, in the Best Musical category, SpongeBob SquarePants and Mean Girls have gay content. In the Featured Actor category, the out gay Gavin Lee is nominated for SpongeBob. But of course, the big news is 11 nominations for Angels in America as a play, with individual nominations for Andrew Garfield, Nathan Lane, Denise Goff, the woman who played the doctor. I'm sorry, or don't. Susan Brown.
Yeah,
Susan Brown. But it's
I'm really
it's a
rooting for
record.
Denise Goff. She was fantastic.
Yes.
And Angels is nominated for Best Revival of a Play, along with Three Tall Women, which was also spectacular.
We love.
See
That's
both
going
of
to be a hard choice if I were a voter. What would you choose?
I luckily I'm not a voter. I don't have to choose. See them both. Adam Rippon is on Dancing with the Stars, Dancing with a Female Partner. They've had gay contestants. They never dance with a same-sex partner. I find that disappointing. But he did dance to RuPaul's Sissy That Walk. So that was a little.
And I'm going to review three Tony.
And he did well.
I'm going to review 3 Tony-nominated plays. Well, St. Joan I should have also included in terms of lesbian content, since it's Condola Rashad as St. Joan, as Joan of Arc. And one of the things they keep emphasizing in the play that one of the big 3 things that she's being burned for is not abandoning men's clothes.
Yeah.
And they repeat this repeatedly. This is George Bernard Shaw. It's endlessly talky, but and he kind of lends a contemporary tone to it, which I wasn't crazy about. But the second act I was very absorbed in, and I also learned the origins of the term nationalism and Protestantism. It was a cute scene. All right, so that's St. Joan, if you have 3 hours to spare. Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, also nominated as Tony for Best Play, and it's the favorite. It's a big hit from London, and they spent tens of millions to transform the theater
and
that's
the show. 6 or 7 hours.
It really, it's 2 plays, and I think you have to buy both parts. And it is, I'll tell you, it is the most magical stagecraft I have ever seen. I didn't know how they were doing the things that they were doing up there. I am a muggle, of course, and I don't understand half the things they're talking about. And I would read up on, I've seen a couple of the movies, I'm not a fan, but I would read up on the language and what's going on. Because it's Harry and his contemporaries are now 37, their kids are going to Hogwarts, and what you saw on the screen where there were the sons of Draco and Harry. It's a father-son story. And I saw Travesties by Tom Stoppard. I walked out 43 years ago on this play when I was a kid out of college, and I was, despite being a Joyce scholar. But it's about how James Joyce and the Dada artist Tristan Tzara and Lenin were in Zurich in 1917. It is absolutely zany, and it is all worked around an amateur production of The Importance of Being Earnest, which the whole thing sounded very repellent to Anne. She didn't go. But this time I had a good time with Bill.
Well, I walked out of another Stoppard play a couple of years ago, so I thought, why should I take a chance on this?
I'm glad I stayed this day. It was deeply offbeat and edifying.
On a lighter note, in Australia, the Voice episode there included a contestant giving a surprise proposal of marriage to his boyfriend.
It was very cute.
There on the left. And
RuPaul was one of the not RuPaul, Boy George was one of the judges over there.
Okay. Last week you told the audience how much you liked the movie Disobedience. Rachel Weisz and Rachel McAdams as a lesbian couple in an Orthodox Jewish community in London.
Good. Both them and Alessandro Nivola as an Orthodox man.
I found it dreary, and so did the New York Times. So
I thought it was very nicely observed, and I'm going to put the since we never get to see the trailer, so I'm going to put it in the email this week. You'll have to sign up for our email list at gayusatv.org.
And you might want to check out the Tennessee Williams Festival in St. Louis, running May 10th through 19th. A production of Streetcar named Desire is the centerpiece, but there are all sorts of panels and discussions and everything else.
And I'm going to see Gentleman Caller about Tennessee Williams and William Inge this week at the Abington Theater Company.
And we'll see you next week. Thank you.